Hey guys, so as some of you guys might know, I have ADHD, so I thought it'd be interesting to post a poll on Instagram for questions you would ask someone with ADHD about ADHD. I guess, let's just get right into it. When did you first start showing behaviors of ADHD? So this was definitely back in elementary school. And of course, I didn't know about it back then because I didn't know what ADHD was. I didn't find out about this until I was in probably middle to early high school. And as, like an East Asian, just Asian in general, our parents don't generally believe in ADHD, or they don't think that it's a real mental illness. They just think, lazy, underachieving. That's like the kind of mindset that my parents had as I was growing up, that ADHD didn't exist, they didn't know about it. Ironically, it's genetic, and my mom probably has ADHD. She didn't know about it either. But when I was first exhibiting symptoms was back in elementary school, I would constantly lose all my stuff. I remember I had this jacket my parents had bought me back when I was a kid, and I lost that. I lost a bunch of lunch boxes, and I remember distinctively my mom would get very upset with me whenever I lost something, because she would be like, why can't you just remember where you put it? Or it's not that hard to remember where you put stuff. Now, I don't lose things as much anymore because growing up with ADHD, you kind of learn how to deal with it. And you kind of just have these little tricks to remember where you place things, or just, keep things in places that you would not lose. How does your day differ from those with ADHD? Okay, so I guess back in high school, or just back in school in general, I would always procrastinate to like the utmost extreme. For example, if I had like a project that was worth 50% on a grade and I had ample time to do it and I didn't have anything else going on, I still wouldn't do it. I would just not do it, and I would get an F and just move on. And that's the same with almost every other class. But luckily, I was able to still pass the majority of my high school classes because I think I'm a pretty smart kid, Like 10 minutes before a test, I would just review what would be on the test, and somehow I still managed, I would say mostly low A to low B. But test grades can only really carry you so far. I didn't do a single homework assignment from sophomore year all the way to senior year. Didn't do a single project. So the only thing that was carrying me through was just my test grades. And I ended school with around like a 2.0 or something. It was pretty bad. But I think it's not too bad considering I didn't show up to school 90% of the time. If I did go to school, I would just be finding like a nice little area to sleep in. I'd bring like a pillow in my backpack and like a blanket and everything. Sneak up to like this hallway that no one is in, and just go to bed. Anyone that's watching this that's still in school, don't do that. That's dumb. Don't waste your school like that. It's good to study. Don't be like me. If I think I might have ADHD, should I see a doctor? Yeah, definitely. Honestly, ADHD impacts your life more than you think. It affects academics, career, your personal relationships. But medication, on the other hand, might not be for everyone. I know a lot of friends who do have ADHD that prefer not to be on medication, and that's because they feel like that it makes them feel not themselves. And I agree with that. When you're on medication like Concerta, Adderall, Ritalin, you do feel a lot calmer than you normally would. You would be able to focus, but you don't feel like yourself. That's not necessarily a bad thing for everyone. For me personally, I still do take my medication whenever I need to get stuff done. And I would take it, I would do all my editing, all my video stuff within that time period. And then whenever I'm off of it, I feel more creative and I can think of ideas for my videos. That's usually how I balance my life. Is dating with ADHD hard? I think it definitely plays a part in relationships. My girlfriend and I have been dating for about 6 years. And in the very beginning of our relationship, we did fight more than we do now. And that's because back then, 6 years ago, neither of us knew I had ADHD because I got diagnosed about like 3 years ago. So for the first half of our relationship, neither of us knew I had ADHD. We didn't really know how to deal with a lot of the problems that I would have. Like I would have trouble paying attention to her whenever she's talking, and whenever she says something, I would react in a way that people normally would react in a different way too. Normally because I wasn't listening, so if she says something that she's super excited about, I'd be like, and then that would lead to a bit of an argument, I'd say. Is ADHD a mental illness? I would definitely say ADHD is a mental illness. What else would you classify that as? I think a lot of people have this stigma about ADHD that is not as a big deal as mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety. And while that may be true on its own, ADHD does affect your life in a much different way than depression and anxiety. Obviously, I'm not trying to downplay depression or anxiety. Those are very serious mental illnesses. But you know what? ADHD has comorbidities. About 50% of people with ADHD have depression and anxiety. So it's not that ADHD is worse than depression or anxiety. It's that generally they go hand in hand. If you have ADHD, you're most likely that you have anxiety and depression as well. For me personally, I did struggle with depression and anxiety a while when I was in high school and just getting out of high school. And I did have a lot of self-esteem issues back in elementary school, middle school. Got a lot better in high school. But yeah, self-esteem definitely was not on the up and up back then. And fun fact, people with ADHD are 4.3 times more likely to have schizophrenia when they're adults. That's not fun. I don't like that. No. I think back then in society, people with ADHD have a hard time finding success. And I think that's mostly because that back then careers were more academically driven. You would need a diploma, you would need an education to get a high-paying job, and people with ADHD tend not to be able to do those things as well as people who don't. It's harder to study if you have ADHD than if you don't. Nowadays, with the rise of content creation and the rise of creativity and the ability to make a living as a content creator, people with ADHD, I would say, have the upper hand. Around the time when I suspected I had ADHD was when I was around fresh out of high school. And like most people, I didn't have any disposable income. Also did not have any health insurance. So for those 2 to 3 years, I was like trying to figure out how to get diagnosed without paying thousands of dollars. So for anyone that was in like a similar situation that I was in, what I came across was this website called donefirst.com. When I first came across Done, I thought it was too good to be true because it's literally exactly what I've been looking for the past 2 to 3 years. They're a company that helps treat and diagnose ADHD through virtual appointments. They are extremely reasonable price. I remember my first experience being when I came across this website and I was looking through everything and I was like, yeah, there's no way this will work. But I was like, you know what? It's super cheap. I'm gonna give it a shot because my ADHD around then was super bad. I wasn't able to focus on anything. It was just a whole mess around that time. So then I scheduled a date and next thing you know, I'm literally in the Zoom call with one of the providers and we're just doing the whole assessment, the whole ADHD diagnosis right there. Like the whole call was about like an hour long. And then fast forward, it's been 3 years. So yeah, for anyone else that's struggling with the cost of the assessment for ADHD, this was my solution. So maybe it can be yours too. All right guys, let me know in the comments about some of your own experiences with ADHD.